So we today are going to talk about distribution in the film industry, a nice light topic that we could wrap up in about 10 minutes or so. We'll try to flush out as much as we can. So again, I'm going to leave it somewhat open outside of the general topic in the sense that we can go many different directions in so much as what's going on like right now at the end of November before Thanksgiving and anything that has to do with the holiday season to what the COVID, how it's going to affect the break of the new year, how it affects the cycle. And again, it's a free for all in the sense that we can still talk about the foundations of things that just aren't going to change to what's, again, happening right now and any prognostication about where we are in 12 months to 24 months and, markets, festivals, actual boots on the ground. So where are we right now with distribution? And you can talk VOD, Blu-rays, streaming, everything. Anybody may begin. If I'll be that teacher. If no one raises their hand, I'll call on you.
I think I have a good way of kind of summing up what's happened in the last few years and where people's mindsets need to be. Everybody on here obviously remembers the Blockbuster days. And if you think of, you got to think of shelf space, shelf space at Blockbuster. Think of it like real estate. And there was a defined amount of shelf space. And as a result, the cream rose to the top and only the best movies ended up on the shelves. And there was a clear path to making money with a film if you were to get some of that coveted shelf space. Now there's no more shelf space. The shelf space is in the cloud, which means there's room for everything, which means now it's not about getting your film on the shelf. It's about figuring out a way to make your film stand out. Is that a good way to kind of paint the picture, I think?
Are there parallels? I remember, again, way back in the day, because I used to design, like, I'll date myself. I used to design laser discs, boxes for films, or anything from that to video games. So at Best Buy or the different software centers, you actually paid for real estate on the shelves. If it was in the front, I know Disney did that too, I think. It was on the top shelf or it was on the side. I mean, is there an equivalent to that?
They still do that in the UK. They have a totally different model for physical objects that they sell. You're actually renting shelf space in the store if you're still gonna release a DVD, right? The store doesn't take the risk. You take the risk as a distributor. You actually pay for that space per week. And you have to make damn sure that thing is going to sell.
And that's kind of how Walmart works today. You're not paying for the shelf space, but it's on consignment. So you're paying for whatever doesn't sell.
Yeah. I'll say it's like you look at the way VOD is and just taking maybe Apple TV, which used to be iTunes, but it's now Apple TV, for this monster bin, the bin being a bin, you know what I mean? And now we're talking about this bin of movies. How are you going to be? No one's going to be digging through that bin, especially if there's a million movies in there. So how are you on the top of that movie? It's like and that's a mystery I think we're all trying to figure out. It's happened to me once. I mean, I mentioned. Oh no, wait, this was another talk. I'm sorry, but the one film I had, a horror movie that was top 5, or maybe I said this yesterday. It was top 5 in iTunes for about a month in horror. And it that took the number 1 spot at one point for like a day or so. And it's like, that's results. And that's when people are going to click. They're going to see it on the screen and then click on it. If you went to horror, there it was, top 5. The other movies were Get Out and a couple of them. Like that was, I had that success with that. Other movies we've released and they've just gone into the bin of bins, and who knows? You know what I mean? It's like then it's on the filmmakers to get it out there and get people to watch it, or some type of marketing that we could do. You know, because we found that Facebook ads, or at least I don't know if these guys would agree with me, they don't. I mean, you just spend $10 to make $1 on those, you know, and so they don't really pay off that much. So it's always tough. We do rely on the filmmakers a lot to try to support their own films on there, but again, you got to think of it as this massive bin. The only thing I'll say, and I echoed this yesterday, was to have 30 of those massive bins going. You know what I mean, with little cash registers, and maybe that's the way, as far as a release of an indie, a micro budget or whatever, is can make some money.
Well, does it go back to the root of like the godfather of distribution, or even AFM? He was kind enough. I'm sure you have your opinions, but I had a quick sit down with Dov Simmons. Let me throw that name out there, where he just essentially said, and this may have even been a seminar way back when I went with Ron Newcomb to AFM like 12 years ago or something, where he basically said, we're not in the film business, we're in a marketing business. Is it still tried and true? That's the bread and butter of how we need to think of putting the movies out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think any product, no matter if it's movies or shampoo or cars, whatever, the path to the consumer is marketing. Yeah. That's the simple truth. That's the laws of physics. You got to do marketing, otherwise they're not going to find it.
I have an agenda by saying that. That's I'm putting that out there to any filmmakers, especially the newer ones out there, because the mentality is still Field of Dreams. I've created this great product, this great film. People will just start coming. So
well, that's great. I mean, you got to have a great product. If you have a great product, then woohoo, let's go sell it. I mean, that's wonderful. If you don't believe that you have a great product, what the hell are we doing here? I mean, you got to believe in it. You got to think this is the greatest thing.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's the next step after. Yeah, that's a great thing, but they like, okay, now start coming, but they're only halfway there.
Yeah, and they do that with Kickstarter too. Those people, I'm not a Kickstarter guy, but the people that do it, they put a Kickstarter number and they just think, I'm going to create this campaign for $100,000 and it's going to have $100,000 in 30 days. You know what I mean? Or like you said, with some of these marketing and the films, they think, well, we're just going to make it amazing and people will find the movie. And it's like, no, they won't. I think we said it yesterday, not a bad film, but a poorly made film, maybe not a perfect film, but let's say on a scale of A through F, it's a D plus, C minus, but that's marketed well, will always do better and make more money than an A plus even film that has no marketing at all behind it. You know what I mean? Or no push. So.
Totally right. I think something that, there's a lot of stuff, especially on indie budgets, that people kind of disregard, things like contingencies, for example. But one thing that almost every indie filmmaker disregards and does not include in their budget is publicity. And PR versus advertising is, PR is all about raising awareness. I mean, advertising is too, but it's much more focused on a very specific place. Whereas PR is more of a viral effort. I lived with a publicist years ago and I got a whole education about it. I mean, you can spend $2,000-$3,000 and hire a publicist and have like a proper PR rollout for your first month of release, or the couple weeks leading up to the release and then the release itself. And it makes such a massive difference.
Yeah.
Would you say advertising is more about emphasis?
Advertising is, again, you're potentially not reaching as many people. I mean, let's look at it just in terms of examples, like buying a billboard that so many people are going to drive past versus getting a publicist who's going to get your cast interviewed on radio shows and podcasts and reviewed, on popular websites. You're going to reach a much grander group of people over a much larger region.
Okay. So, I mean, well, let's.
I can give a direct example of that. Literally, we had a publicist on this web series we did called Dropping the Soap. It was to Jane Lynch. It was the behind the scenes of a soap opera. But say we paid for ads and we spent X amount of dollars, that wouldn't. I don't believe that would have translated. But a perfect example is that it was so funny, and we had a publicist somehow. Long story short, we got an Emmy nomination for Jane for Best Actress in a Web Series Comedy. And then she won. She won the Emmy. So it's like, so then our show got the Emmy. And it's like the best part about that is even before she won, Amazon came to us and they said, do you mind if we put some banner ads for your show?
Nice.
It's like, yeah, no, we're not interested. Of course, we're like, and it's like, so they came to us. So versus if we had paid or done something, no, exponentially more from using a publicist that got us the Emmy. You know what I mean? Like that's, how could you quantify that? So much more.
Hey, Tom, where was that released? Where can we see that?
It's on Amazon and it's on iTunes and Google Play. And yeah,
you
those are the
put it out like you would a movie, just on all the different platforms.
We did. We put it out on a bunch of different platforms. And then there was an interesting asterisk there, is that because the way they shot it in the SAG rules, it was a web series in the U.S. It's super funny. But internationally, we were allowed to sew it into an actual film. So we sold it as a film internationally, and it's a web series in the U.S. So, there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Hey, look who it is.
Hey. What's going on? Hey.
Phill Gorn from Wonder Film.
Hey. Tom, like your posters, man.
Thanks, brother. John Cassavetes.
Have the same ones up. The same.
Awesome.
Cool, man.
Phill, thank you for joining us, sir.
No problem. My pleasure.
Brought us right at the beginning of our discussion. So I know you're going to be able to fill us with even more wisdom and knowledge.
It's like all the outliers of the AFM.
Every day it is like a high school reunion, though. It's like always like there's a couple people you don't want to see, but then you're super psyched to see most people. And
Can I honestly tell you this? Like, look, I didn't become a sales agent because I was passionate about distribution. I became a sales agent because I was tired of grabbing my ankles. And there's a handful of good guys and a lot of bad guys, and like everybody on here is a good guy. So you did a good job, man. I've been on some panels where some of the bad guys are there too, and
That's fun though.
I mean that's actually, well, Mark. That's as I think that's why I started my company. It was just tired of making films and giving it to somebody and saying, okay, well, you made these sales and I'm not seeing anything, and
right,
yeah. So.
Then we all went on the other side and we go, oh, yes, you still don't see anything. But at least now we know that it's it. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I do get a kick out of it. It's like the funny side note is that I was trying to close this database at the beginning. That's why I was distracted. But that is something that we started doing with filmmakers is post-market, which we just had the AFM, is showing who had interest in their film and giving them that list because, and you guys all agree with me, if you didn't do that, now I don't say, some of you may do it, some of you may not. I give them the actual name of the company and tell them here's the 20 companies that were interested in your film. Because prior to doing that, we had some filmmakers that would be like, dude, where's all the money from all the sales? Like, you guys are going to these markets and you're not selling my movie. And I'm like, bro, we pitched your movie 80 times. Yeah. Like, trust me, nobody bought it. So now we give these lists to every filmmaker so they can be like, oh, here's the 30. And if they get 0 sales, they'll be like, okay, just so you know, 30 companies passed on your movie, but at least we're doing our job.
I give the 9,000. I give the list of 9,000 buyers to every filmmaker.
Well,
but at the same time, you gotta. I mean, for me, when I pick up a movie, it's got to be twofold. It's got to be the right thing. It's got to be a movie I believe in, but at the same time, there's got to be a reasonable producer that I know I can work with. And that's tough to find because you find a lot of great films with unreasonable producers attached. And then you find some great producers who you wish they had a better film.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I had a talk with my friend Daisy, who I'm sure you all know from Tri-Coast, and it was like, yeah, there's so many movies I turned down just because, like, I'm not going to be able to deal with these filmmakers. Like, literally from day one, I'm like, nope, not interested. Even if the movie I feel like I could sell, sometimes it's like, life's too short, man. Like, I'm not going to get texted every day.
Let me put a time out on that. And again, this is about educating our filmmakers. How can you please define what a reasonable filmmaker producer is? What do you want to get from them? I mean, it may come from them organically and naturally, which is great. But if they've got to transform themselves and put on a business hat and the grown-up pants to say, okay, I'm going to deal with a distributor. I'm going to take all ego and negative aspects of my character aside because I want to sell this film. Who do I have to be to make you guys happy and really sell my film?
Well,
what's a reasonable producer?
I'll touch on a couple points there. First of all, by having an initial conversation and getting a sense of their self-awareness or lack of self-awareness, that's key. But, before I sign up a film, we do estimates, and our estimates are very real numbers so that if our estimates and their expectations are so far apart that we're never going to find a happy median, then we're not right for each other. And that's the other thing. Estimates, which is the carrot that a lot of sales agents dangle in front of producers, aside from the fact that the numbers are usually way off, estimates are very misleading, because when you see estimates, you see the whole world filled in. Most movies are never going to sell, not just the whole world. Most movies are not even going to sell 50% of the territories. The idea is you want to sell a handful of the key ones and then a bunch of the small ones, and collectively they'll do business. So it can be very misleading. So I'm just very upfront about that. I take every movie on short term, because I don't want to be stuck with something I can't sell any more than somebody wants to be stuck with somebody who can't sell it. I just try to be real upfront about it, because I make myself available too. Like my producers, they can text me, they can call me, they can hit me up on the weekend, and I'm always responsive. But if somebody's not respectful of that, I'm just like, yeah, we're done.
Okay. So I'm saying, as far as them, who ideally would you like to be approached by?
Let me just add to one little asterisk, is that yes, not the annoying ones that are up on top of you all the time. I'm the same way, like Mark. You could text me, you can email me, and we don't commit somebody to a long thing. We even do safeguards every year. Like, if we don't make this money, you could take the film back.
Right.
And so we actually do that for the first 3 years. But the key is, I'll also say that there are filmmakers that'll give me their film and then disappear. And that's not good either. I'm like, I don't want that either, because like, I'm tracking you down, like, to get a question or get something that they forgot to give me. So it's like, that's not good either. The key is just, you can check in every once in a while. It's not, when I'm talking about these annoying filmmakers, I have pretty high tolerance. I'm talking about the people that will multi-text me during the day, and then randomly I'll get the freak out text. Like, what the F are you doing for my movie? Something like that is crazy. And so that's what I'm talking about. If you're, obviously, if they're passionate about their film, that's great. And the ones that come and say, what can I do to help? Those are the ones you love. You know what I mean? Then it's like, well, yeah, all right, here, can you do this? Can you post? You know what I mean? Like, those are great. So
I just try to educate my producers, especially if they're first timers, about the reality, like all the stuff we're talking about here. Like, I spend some time and I try to educate them about it and give them examples of successes and failures, so that they understand, and they have to settle in, because more often than not, a slow burn. You get these producers who, after day one of AFM or Cannes or whatever, they're like, how'd we do? It's like, whoa, like, that's not reality. Maybe it was 10, 15 years ago. It's not now. So I just try to set the stage and paint the picture appropriately, so they know what to expect.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oops.
You too. I agree with Mark. We try to be careful up front and make sure we have a good synergy, that they understand our part of the world, so we can work good together. Because like you said, if the expectations are too far apart, we're not a good fit. It's got to be a good fit. And if they're new, but they're willing to understand and learn the hard, cold truth about the commercial world, then fine, we can work together. But if they still want to live in fantasy land, then it's just not going to work out.
Yep. This just happened with a film. I won't say the title, but it had Mickey Rourke in it, and it was a well-made film, but the filmmaker had dumped a lot, like $3 million.
Exactly what you're talking about. Exactly the conversation.
Yes, I'm sure you've all had it. Yeah, I mean, maybe you've all. But it was like,
we're talking about the film. That film's been floating around now for like a year and a half.
More. I think it's got a 2017 on IMDb, which all the four of us know here, that there's buyers that look up your film in the meeting and go, nope, it's too old. It's 2018. I'm not interested. And literally will shut it down from that point. And so I said, look, we'll try to sell it. First, we'll try to change the title and change the date. I said, but here's the estimations, and the estimations were way off from what he was thinking. And obviously that was the last I heard from him, but I put it in the email that, brother, you need to get this film sold and out there, or else you're going to make like 50 grand off total from this movie. Like, over the next, like, you're in trouble. Like, it's an old film now, and he felt sitting on it was no big deal. And it's like, nope, that is a big deal in this world, unfortunately. So that's a perfect example where the expectations didn't match.
Yeah, I brought this same thing up again without naming the film, but I mean, he spent 7 figures on something he should have spent 6 figures on. And he's waiting for that dream scenario to present itself, and it's never going to come. And I told him that.
There's something called IMDb, Mark, and you said 2017 Mickey Rourke. I think maybe somebody's going to be able to figure out what that film is, but
Yeah,
That's okay. You know what? It was a pretty decent film too. You know?
it was.
I mean, it was Godfather, but like it was it was a good film on many levels. Mickey's a good name. He's the like second lead in the movie, but the producer just doesn't have a clue. And unfortunately, he's devaluing his asset. I said the other day when I was mentioning this, I'm like, it's like driving the car off the lot and then driving it for a year and a half and then thinking that it's still worth what it was worth on the lot.
Well, you've all seen this too. It's the person, again, not being specific, but I believe that the person that financed it came from another world. And you've all seen this. Somebody that was successful in something else, real estate, tech, blah, 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 thinks they can come into the movie business and figure it all out immediately because they have all the answers. And I have seen that fail maybe 18, 20 times. And it's like, it's never going to work. That's the worst. You should come into this business going, all right, I want to learn. Tell me, you know what I mean? And from the experts. But if you come in going, I could sell this. I tell you what to do. You're so screwed. You're so screwed. So that's a perfect example.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Well, yeah, what started this was, again, having an educated filmmaker, producer come to you guys and knowing what's going on. And you mentioned what the expectations were. So me put this.
Fernando, it's not even did when they approach us. It's about like knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Well, that's reasonable subheading, I guess. Knowing that you don't know and you're ready to learn going in.
Yeah,
That's a preparation.
Don't pretend.
And just kind of like you said, tell me, teach me what's, you know, if you don't know anything, if you have no experience of this end of the whole machine, then at least be open to the idea of, tell me what's really going on. And if they have that attitude, then we can do good stuff together.
Right.
Yeah.
But as a producer, especially a newer one, what you do have to be cognizant of, because again, like these guys are all good and I'm very straightforward. For every one of us, there's 4 other ones that will, bend you over, so to speak. So it's like you have to, from a just protecting yourself and legal perspective, know some of the right questions to ask too. And have somebody looking out for you that's going to help you structure the agreement right.
I mean,
that's
there's also,
educate yourself about.
Yeah, because there's also an understanding, as I get asked my opinion on the state of whatever distribution, the industry filmmaking all the time. I always put out the disclaimer also that what I say right now, just because of the nature of the business, in 3 months, that may be not the case, like at all, like 0%. Whether it's rom-coms are hot or VOD is where it's at, or Netflix just wants DVDs only. I mean, you look at the evolution of Netflix over the last 10 years, it's as an example. So right now where we are, if we put up the banner of the state of distribution, what are your opinions? Whether it's, again, VOD, streaming, cable, Netflix, again, Blu-rays, what's the state of the industry distribution as of Thanksgiving week 2020?
I think Netflix is a topic that should be addressed because I think everybody thinks of it as like this shiny penny, and it's really not. Everybody you meet is like, oh, I want to get my film on Netflix. It's like, yeah, everybody wants their film on Netflix because it's kind of become the gold standard. But if you're fortunate enough to actually get your film on Netflix these days, it's not necessarily a good deal. In fact, more often than not, it doesn't even make sense financially. We all do it. Like, I got a film on Netflix right now, but Netflix ties up a film for a very long time exclusively, like 2.5 years, which means
and pays out.
Yeah,
for 2.5.
Pay out over the course of the term. So every quarter they're paying out. So like, just to put it into perspective, I have a film on there right now that has a negative cost of about $750,000, which means that's what they need to recoup. Wow. Netflix wanted the film. It's on Netflix right now. There's 3 basic levels of a Netflix acquisition. There's a North America, which for a small movie can range 50 to 60 grand. There's what we got, which was all English speaking territories. So that's US, Canada, UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. That's worth a little over $100,000. And then there's the worldwide, which is like anywhere from 350 to 550. My point is that if you made a movie for $1 million and you get that Netflix deal, so we did a deal that was worth a little over $100,000. It's on Netflix for 2.5 years. I cannot exploit it on any of the SVOD or AVOD platforms until June of 2022.
Wow. So
You know what I mean?
exclusive
So
is
like,
exclusive.
there's another $100,000 in this movie domestically that I won't even get to for a year and a half. Now we've done a fair amount of business overseas, but they're far from making their money back. So like, yeah, they got this Netflix deal that everybody's chasing, but that doesn't mean it's a great deal. So again, like, I think people have this misconception that Netflix is the gold standard. It is from a visibility and and branding you as a filmmaker or whatever. Financially, Netflix is very rarely a great deal. So just a little bit of reality on that. I don't know if anyone else has something to contribute on that front.
Right.
Well, just in the last 10 seconds, how many producers across the world just said Netflix? Like, can you get my film on Netflix? So they're a little tough to get to. They're a little tough to accept, and just look at what's on Netflix and you'll see what you
unless you got like a high-end action film or like legit A- names in your film, it's tough to get indie content on there now.
Well, that's the thing. Acquisitions versus production. Everybody will flaunt how much they're paying for their productions. That's a Netflix produced, Extraction or something like that. Those kind of things. That's completely different from their acquisition side. Which, yes, I agree. I mean, we all know they pay crap. They offered me 25 on a movie once. You know what I mean? And they wanted exclusive, and I actually talked them into non-exclusive. Thank God. But it was like, that's ridiculous. And again, like we said, you're paying out over 18 months or the length of the term. I
think right now, of all the different VOD categories, I think AVOD is clearly emerging as the mainstay and the most lucrative ongoing. If you look at like Tubi TV, which, nobody heard of 2 years ago, and then Fox bought them. And now it's like, I'm betting everyone will agree with me. We see more money off of Tubi than almost anywhere.
Yeah, that's one of my main.
And now we're expanding to other parts of the world too. So I think AVOD is definitely where it's at. I think that's why Quibi failed. Quibi failed because they adopted a subscription-based model. They should have been an ad-based model. Like, you don't have to Meg Whitman to that one.
Fernando, you asked State, I think, to dovetail from Marc with the AVOD, I think AVOD, the positive thing with AVOD and what we see in views is that, because I was always wondering about these unknown indie films with no-name actors and all that, even if it's well crafted, there's well-made film, and I was thinking, why would they pick it over something more well-known, right? But with AVOD, and we didn't see any rentals or very low rentals because they didn't know about the film, even with marketing. But with AVOD, the positive thing is that the conclusion I draw is that the numbers go up so much. So they are interested in discovering and watching unknown films. They just don't want to pay for it up front.
Yeah.
They don't mind the ads like on YouTube or regular broadcast TV. And overall, I think that's a positive thing because the views are there. They are interesting to discover other things.
Well, the only thing I disagree with Erik is I've been selling no-name and I've been producing absolutely no-name films for 15 years. so that's all I've been doing is selling no-name.
Well, let me see. Who? This might help, Fernando, for the filmmakers that might be listening. These are the genres that I feel. I just did a video on this. It's like, here's the genres that sell. Like, meaning action
right now.
Yes, and this probably won't change.
Okay, that's what I want to say.
Is that every single buyer? I go, we talk about COVID, we talk about the election, whenever we get out, and then we go, all right, so what genres are you interested in? They go action. Like, that's almost the first word out of every single buyer's mouth. I'd say 80%, 90%. Then the other things are genre, but the key with horror is it's so flooded that they'll say horror with cast potentially. Then I will say that, so being genre, sci-fi, horror, thrillers, maybe it's step under there. Family. The other section of film is family. That's the one where you can get away with no cast, family, potentially faith-based, or vanilla comedies. Like, I've had success with some of those. That what I would stay away from is the super edgy, doing cocaine and sex comedies, or the indie dramas that are slow moving and painful and they're about suicide. Every filmmaker for some reason wants to make those films. And so those are the ones that I've always found are very tough to sell, the no-name dramas. You know what I mean? So it's like, in that regard, if you wanted to pick any of those, you want to make you want no names, go ahead, make an action movie or make a family film that they can watch with their families. And we've sold very well on those movies because you could sell them to Middle East, you could sell them to Africa. Ava, they do very well, you know. So that's what I think that would be a good tip for filmmakers. I don't know.
And those movies make money over long periods of time. I had a no-name action movie I picked up in like 2014. It sold a couple of territories, but for the most part, did very little business. And then 5-6 years later, all of a sudden, there was renewed interest in it, and I sold like 4 more territories. So over long periods of time, those movies continue to make money.
Evergreen. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, what you're saying too, Tom, that was kind of the way it's always been for me over a dozen years. Probably around that was AFM 101, what sells. Boom, action, and then it would be horror right after, and then because it doesn't necessarily need the names, as you said. So it's good to hear the little silver lining fringe of family and faith-based films.
Has so many
it's really, I mean, Fernando, it's pretty tough, man. I mean, you know, like when you're making films, and I get the indie producers trying to make, I mean, they're making meaningful films. So they're making films, you know, about some guy coming back from the war and he's, you know, he's suicidal or something. And it's like, yeah, it's powerful. It's a hard sell and it might do well in the festivals and it may get, you know, some good reviews, but it's still just pretty tough to sell.
Brutal.
I get why everybody's making it and it's current and when they go to the festivals, everybody loves it and everything, but it's from a sales side, it's tough.
Very tough.
Would you say?
I was going to touch on horror films real quick, unless you had a follow-up question there.
No, please go.
Horror films are interesting because, you know, there's a lot of filmmakers that are very religious to them. You know, they lend themselves to low budgets. They're not as reliant on cast, but there's so many bad ones. But, you know,
what's a bad one? What's a bad one?
There's just a lot of not well-made horror, low-budget horror content.
Because I'm not a horror fan. Is it just less gore?
I'm not either. But if you make a well-made horror film that is conceptually great, like there's a movie on Tubi right now. Go find it. It's called The Farm. I tried to pick this movie up. I don't know who sold it, but like this movie has nobody in it. It's super low budget and it's genius. You know, so something like that can stand out. But the thing about a genre like horror, there's places like North America, Latin America, Japan, Korea that are always going to buy horror films. There's a lot of the world that won't touch horror films. So when you make a film like that, you automatically have to exclude like half the world because you're never going to sell it for the most part in the Middle East. You're probably not going to sell it in China. You're not going to sell it in Africa. Like there's territories that just won't touch it. So horror can be like a double-edged sword, but it's usually one of the most tangible genres for indie filmmakers to break into.
Well, you know, here's an issue that I see, and I'm a huge horror geek, by the way. And again, that, you know, going to the no stars, if I watch a trailer and I think it's going to be scary, I'm buying the film. Like that's it, like meaning not buying it for my company, like watching it on my house, you know, at home. I go, does this look scary? Great. I don't give a crap who, you know, Jessica Biel's in. I don't care. You know, it's like, is it going to be scary? But I'll just say, here's the overall problem is that technology has changed. You know, you guys have been all around a long time. When you had to shoot a film on 35 millimeter film, that entailed a huge crew and, you know, and a gateway, I would say, of money that you had to do to even get there. Now I can go to Best Buy and get a camera equivalent of that or close to that, or even my iPhone. And that has opened, for lack of a better term, the floodgate of because so many people could just make a movie now. And when Marc talks about bad horror movies, we've all seen them where it's like, clearly this was on your phone and it looks horrible and the acting is shit and all that. And all I could say, Fernando, if you want to put yourself in the best, I guess, stacking the deck in your favor is use experts. Look at it as making a film as an expert way. You don't have to spend, I'm not saying spend a ton of money, but I'm saying hire professionals and do it the right way to start because anybody can make a film these days. Unfortunately, that's really bad, and that's the problem with a lot of that stuff. So don't make a horror movie just because on your phone it's not going to just make money because you made it.
Hey Tom, when I mentioned it, have you seen this movie called The Farm?
No, maybe.
Go on Tubi and watch The Farm. I actually tried to pick the movie up. Somebody else got it. I have no idea, but I brought it up as an example of like clearly low budget, nobody in it, but like a genius horror film. And I don't even really care for horror films as a.
Well, look at the platform on Netflix. I mean, that's, from Spain. The platform is off the charts, and that could have. I mean, they had a budget, but that could have been made for nothing.
Look at a movie like The Strangers. that had a budget and a cast and everything, but like that was the simplest, most straightforward concept, and it was one of the best horror films of the last like 15 years.
I love all those.
Horror is a cool genre because the concept can be the star. Which makes it much more tangible if you don't have a budget. But again, it's got to be well made.
And by the way, we throw it out there real quick. And AVOD stands for advertising video on demand, just in case people don't get the lingo.
Yeah, there's three different general types. There's ad-based AVOD, subscription-based like Prime, SVOD, and then PVOD, which is transactional like iTunes or Apple or whatever.
PVOD.
Yeah, so when you hear if your question was about the new changes, is that this, I'll say one positive COVID thing, to get back to that from one of those questions was about it, is that the premium VOD was always a thing that they were always talking about, but the theaters were super fighting against it. And when an interesting thing happened this year when it was Invisible Man, or maybe it was Trolls, that came out to premium, because I remember I watched Invisible Man. That was the first one we ever paid $19.99 to watch in my house, because I was, again, horror geek, and Elizabeth and I did a film together, and I was like excited about that movie. Watched that film, and then what happened was, I don't know if it was that or Trolls, then Universal said, or no, AMC said they weren't going to play any Universal movies anymore, like as a punishment. I don't know if you all remember that, because they the window of theaters there. And then what happened after that? Then they made a deal with AMC and blah, blah, blah. Now theaters are hanging by a goddamn thread, So the only positive for, I guess, audience content is that premium VOD is a thing. Wonder Woman's coming to HBO Max the same day it's coming to theaters, and I have HBO Max. I'll be watching it at home, But it's like that's an interesting thing, is that money can be made now on the premium VOD. Maybe not the same amount, obviously, but but Trolls did very well, and some of these movies can do very well, I guess, on that. But that's a change. I mean, like a huge monumental change that will affect everything going forward. So
everybody agrees on that for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're in a strange year, that's for sure. So we'll see. Hopefully, 2021 is a little more active and a little more.
I have a theory about.
2020's been.
I have a bit of a theory about theatrical in the U.S. I think, AMC will probably be the lone survivor aside from the independently owned ones. But I think what we'll start to see now is, if you have like a 12-screen theater, you'll just have like 3 or 4 films take over all those screens. I think the biggest films will dominate more screens. So instead of going to a 12-screen theater and having choices of 9 or 10 movies, you'll have a choice of like 3 or 4. I think that's what's going to happen ultimately. So the 95% of the movies are just going to go, non-theatrical, and then the real big ones like the Christopher Nolan movies and whatever will just be on more screens in those.
Okay, you can say, Eric.
No, I was going to say that makes sense, because then you have fewer people in each room, right? Because they have to be spread out, so they all see the movie, which is on many different screens at the same time. Yeah, I see what
that's my theory. So theaters are going to go away. I think it's just going to be very different. You're only going to go to the movies now to see the big blockbusters,
the Avengers and stuff. Yeah.
Wow. I wonder if they can survive with that model, though.
But I'll tell you. Well, there's going to be less. If AMC has 10,000 locations, they'll probably have 5,000. But I don't think they're going away. But overseas, it's very different. Like in China, they still have like 60,000 screens, and people go. So I'm just talking about in the U.S. I think it's going to change dramatically. There's other territories where I don't think it's going to change all that much at all.
I mean, that's just as an aside, as a curious thought. So, is the attitude towards the pandemic in movie going, theater going, is the culture and attitude different? You mentioned China, so less restrictive, more restrictive, like total shutdown to like just go, we don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much into a cultural discussion, but the United States is going to definitely be more stringent about that type of stuff than a lot of other corners of the world.
Okay, which is maybe more subjective person. I had thought about that angle, as far as because
like China's film buying habits are not going to change. In fact, their theatrical market will continue to grow.
Wow, so I don't think it's for people who don't travel a whole lot, especially internationally. The scope of the power of the studios. What am I trying to get at? I was in Africa a bunch of years ago, and I was in one of the malls, and I saw the theater. It's just regular theater in a mall, but all the general mainstream movies were playing. And just looking at the advertising, and I just started doing the math in my head. How many times did they have to produce this poster all around the world, and just the cogs and the mechanics to get this distributed? That's just massive. In terms of, I guess, in the back of my mind, what I'm trying to put out there, it's not just the production of the movie. When you get it out there, going back to what we said about marketing and publicity, there's an immense cost, if not, well-known secret, that tends to be the larger part of the budget than the actual production, or it definitely can be.
I'll tell you right now that Erik, Phill, Tom, and I have a more real-world understanding of what the economy and what COVID is doing in around the world than almost anyone else, because we talk on a weekly basis to people on 5 different continents or whatever. So what you're hearing on the media and whatever is what it is. But I talk to people in Europe and Asia and Australia every week. So I know what's going on in those places economically and related to COVID. And, it's very different than we might have an idea from, what the media is telling us.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I just said to my colleague Rob, who does the meetings with me, and then Michelle takes her own meetings, but we always joke that the first 15 minutes of every meeting now has to be about COVID. That's the first 15 minutes of every meeting is hey, how are you guys doing over there? And then they're in Argentina and they say all this, and then it's that has to be the start of the meeting now. It'd be nice to just talk about movies, but
yeah. And it's funny, everybody comes up on their Zoom and everybody kind of looks deflated, especially AFM started right as Western Europe was shutting down again. So you can see people sitting in a dark closet with a hoodie, looking depressed. So what are you looking to buy?
Yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Did all of you attend AFM or give it a try? Just I guess it was a week ago.
I was somewhat lackadaisical about it compared to actually attending a market. I mostly just set meetings with my usual buyers. I didn't have a lot of new meetings with new buyers and stuff. It's kind of a weird format to try to cultivate new relationships. The one good thing I will say is that now, due to COVID, the sales are happening more consistently. I mean, most of the sales are small anyway. They're not bigger ones. They're mostly smaller ones, but they're happening more consistently throughout the year. Whereas a lot of times things really kind of revolve around the markets, and people have budgets that correlate specific to the markets. Now people are kind of, especially in Europe where everybody disappears for 2 months during the summer, nobody's on holiday. Everybody's trying to get shit done. So COVID, I think, has actually had a bit of a silver lining in the sense that I've been able to focus less attention on the market specifically and kind of even things out over the course of the year.
To some degree. I mean, I've found it, pretty brutal.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm doing
so.
Excuse not big,
French, but it's I have the conversations with the buyers. Everybody's staying home watching movies now, so why aren't you buying more? It's I call it the deer in the headlights syndrome. It's we have the pandemic. I just started my company a couple of years before the 2008, collapse. And if I would have started it a year later, if I would have started in 2007 or something, I would have been screwed. I would have folded for sure. And everybody just froze. I'm why are you freezing? You're not even affected by this. you know, some,
People,
you know,
I think people are nervous
everybody
about parting
feels
with
kind of
cash
compared
right now
to
too,
this.
because there's a big question mark on what's going to happen. So basically, yes, everybody wants more content, but they either want to pay little or nothing for it up front. That's the problem for us.
Shares. Yeah, that's one of my. I'm sure you all know Stuart from ITN, but I remember one of the markets.
I'm going to mute myself at this point.
Yeah, no, but he is funny, and he said to me, I said the market's pretty bad, and he goes, yeah, even the people who don't pay aren't buying. That was funny. Yeah, it's true. I'm like, that's hysterical.
I heard him making that comment.
But let me say, you know, we've done very well on the virtual markets post Berlin. That was the last travel that I did. I'm looking because there's my market list up there. February 28th or 27th came back, and that we didn't sell anything in Berlin. I'll just say that because that was right when it hit, and everybody went like, "What the hell's going on?" No one knew it was going to happen. Then it turned around and started going, and we've been pretty great at setting up the meetings. The funny thing, and again, maybe this is getting a little bit off topic, is that there's places like MIPCOM that are trying to charge you $3,000-$4,000 to attend, and it's like we could just use the week of that festival and just make Zoom meetings, and that's what we've been doing. Like TIFF, that's what I didn't pay anything to TIFF. We just went, TIFF from this to this. Let's just email all our buyers and go, let's have a TIFF meeting and send them the Zoom link. You know what I mean? Like I did pay for AFM. What was it, 500, 600? I don't even remember what that was, but I didn't use the platform. I mean, our acquisitions guy got filmmakers off the platform, but we didn't get buyers off it. We just reached out to the buyer list.
That's
and
exactly what we did. Yeah, you're only basically paying for the buyer list because I didn't have one interaction through their platform.
Wow.
No, neither have ever done it. And even with Talk or the one that Can used, I didn't do anything on there. But the joke is that some of these markets, I think it was NatP, pitched me and they were like, well, yeah, the booth is $9,000. I go, the virtual booth is $9,000. It's like, sure. I go, good luck with that. Like, I think they're just trying to stay alive or something, but it's just hysterical. It's like, we found out we don't need them. But, you know, the crappy part is that we were both saying, I said this to MJ, Marc, as I said, this is all the market without the fun. Like, so it's like all the business, and it's not as much of the business. It's less of it, obviously, but it's like the whole fun part, which is valuable to filmmakers. Us going out and having drinks with those buyers sometimes entices them to buy. But that whole aspect of it is.
Can't tell you how many times I'm chasing a buyer for like 3 years, can't get a response. And then I bump into him at a party and end up like, you know, building the relationship. That's gone. You know?
Yeah. Working. Yep.
Well, that's some pretty cool intel. Do you think that's 2020 AFM? I'll put that in quotes. Do you think 2021 and beyond will shift it? Saying things well.
I mean, Berlin is still moving ahead. They're having a virtual and in person, but who's
really?
going to go? You know?
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, none of it. I wouldn't go. Yeah, I mean, like, and then you risk a quarantine or whatever. Like that.
Yeah, I'm hoping by Can, but even then, I can't.
March.
I can't figure out how they would go about it.
Yeah, I mean, it came up in a conversation.
They can shift up to 3 months, I believe. They put that out that they could shift June, July, or August.
But I'll also be the first to say here, you know, exhibiting at markets costs tens of thousands of dollars. You know, I go to 4 markets a year where I actually have a presence. So it was like a paid vacation to an extent for me. I was happy to take the year off from doing that and just, you know, focus on my business and you know, hitting people up on Zoom and email.
Well, you didn't have a hole to climb out of. That's especially with Can.
Correct.
That was huge.
Yeah.
Like,
no, for me, AFM is always the big loss leader.
Yeah.
AFM for me historically has cost more than Berlin and Can combined, and that includes travel and hotels.
Oh, okay. Well, so we got 4 people we take to Can. That's where it adds up. Yeah. But those were equal, Can and AFM. But Berlin was always a value. Thankfully, that was a value one. But yeah, going forward, that's the way I would look at it. It's like we had 8 on the schedule. We'll never do that again. Probably pick 2. Like that's what we were talking about. The company is going like, well, which 2 are we going to go to? So
no, well, we put something out there. Have we discovered undiscovered country here as far as 2021? Are people discovering we don't need like the traditional AFM? Because look what we can do without them. We don't need to put the $9,000, $25,000 investment. We can just, like you said, grab the list and have a Zoom, whatever new media free for all.
Well, that's also where just having the right content makes a difference. Because I'll tell you, like last year, for the first time, I had like a really premium theatrical quality action film, and I did exorbitant business compared to previous years where it's like small deal here, small deal there. So at the end of the day, if you have the right content, you're still going to do business. But you know, the markets definitely help, especially for us. We're all more boutique type companies, and with markets, you know, being there in person is serves its purpose.
And like, I mean, I do think it was kind of a brutally slow year, but it was also like, okay, July, August, there is business coming in. There usually that's just shut down months. Let's go make a film or let's go do something. And this July, August, I was like, okay, it's steady. It's like, okay, don't go anywhere too far.
Now when I get one of those email responses, it's like, I'm out of the office or I'm on holiday. It's like,
right. Well, you know, things like, so I had never been to Film Art before. And prior to this year, it was like, I'm going to just go by myself. Instead of bringing 3 or 4 of us, I was going to go. But it turned out we did virtual film art and did very well. We had more meetings in virtual film art than MIPCOM or TIFF. And so that was pretty cool. Like, so meaning there is an advantage, Fernando, that you could do more of these markets during the year because you're not going anywhere, you know, so that's an advantage. But I think to your point, many businesses, even outside of ours, have realized how much can be done without travel, you know, and hotel and food and, you know, and booths. I mean, theoretically, they're all trade shows if you think about it. You know what I mean? They're trade shows like any other trade show. And so how many of those can be done virtually? Many.
Yeah, I mean, this year I was in San Francisco, I was shooting in LA, I was in Budapest and in Hong Kong all at the same time.
Twins? You have twin brothers? Or
that's why they call him Wonderville.
That's right. That's
right. Yeah.
I mean,
virtually.
Throw a weird spin on it. What if a new dynamic is more markets, like every quarter, hell, even every month? Is that is there a game change afoot?
Well, look, at the end of the day, whether you're a writer, an actor, a director, a producer, a sales agent, this whole business is a bit of a numbers game. So in theory, it could work to our benefit because you're able to have more meetings, talk to more people. It's just tougher to build new relationships is the challenge.
Okay, well, let's be trendy for a moment because I know personally, like on the festival side, it's great to have these. It's new. It's you know, we're adapting, or as Bruce Lee would say, we're being the nature of water. Just whatever obstacle we're fitting it into it. But like we had the awards ceremony last night, and then we had, you know, during the week we'd have the film screenings. But there's that magic at the after party, the networking, people you wouldn't meet. I mean, and even on the human equation part of it, I keep getting stories now, which is great. Every year there'd be something where a couple of years we had like Michael Uslan, the executive producer behind all the Batman movies and the Joker. He met up with an up and coming filmmaker, and that person is now that's a life memory for them, and that's going to inspire them throughout the rest of their life and their career. So I just don't think you're going to get that here. As great as you gentlemen are, and the knowledge you're throwing out there, there's still that human equation, seeing someone face to face, flesh to flesh.
Oh yeah, film festivals. I would be crushed if I got into Cannes or Sundance and it was virtual. I would be like, I mean, film festivals, I feel horrible for. That sucks. But for us, I mean, we could do business this way, you know. But the one thing I'll say about the virtual markets is like, there was a couple of people film art that we tried to schedule for TIFF, and they were like, didn't we just talk like 2 weeks ago? You know, so they were like, we don't want to talk to you. So it's like, you know, you have your gold buyers. I agree with Marc. It's people. Yeah, it's a little awkward, you know, to meet them for the first time on Zoom, but we've done it. You know what I mean? We're still going out to the lists and hitting them up and trying to set up meetings. So business-wise, I think we'll be there. You know, it's just, you know, the social aspect, which wasn't a huge aspect of it, is gone. At least for now, you know, that who knows? Who the hell knows how no one can see the future, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's strange. I mean, I'm doing deals and even with the producers too. It's like signing films. It's like, I've never seen or even like talk to the person even on the phone. Like everything's just emails, text. Like, wow, okay, man. Like you don't want to even like talk like once. Like, like and we can't see each other face to face, but we don't even want to talk. And the buyers too is like, wow, I just did a deal. Like I don't even know who this person is or where they are in reality. But send me the money.
As Marc said earlier, it's a numbers game. Have you seen, just reading the tea leaves on the numbers, have you seen anything to identify worthy of commenting on?
Worthy of commenting?
No, the numbers, like you say more sales, less sales.
On one hand, we're able to have meetings and talk to more people. On the other hand, is there going to be a drought of new content? That's the big question mark.
Okay. Yeah. Are you still? I mean, how about the buyers? Are you having a harder time reaching out to them? Or are they like coming out to you like we're desperate now? What's that state?
I mean, the good thing about any of us who've been doing this long enough, and we've all been doing it long enough, I don't even have to reach out to most of my usual clients. They reach out to me first. Again, it's hitting up the new guys that's challenging in this format.
Okay. Okay. I'm keeping an eye on people are having issues. It looks like
Eric's back. Yeah.
Well,
I'm back. I don't know why it turned gray, but I just refreshed and that was fine.
Yeah, well, the majority of our attendees also had to skip out or having.
Hey, by the way, sorry, I don't mean to be like such a cliche over here, but this is like a 2 time a day situation for me at this point because of COVID. COVID does not nurture good habits.
Okay.
Are you talking about cigar?
Finally opening.
No, this used to be 2 a week. Now it's 2 a day.
Oh, I don't know. You look kind of baller with it. Just he's like, all right, Mr. Hollywood, looking good. Okay.
What's funny is I run 3 to 4 miles 5 days a week, and then I come back and I do this.
I guess you're balancing it out. I don't know. You've got the Eastern European Borat, jogging coat there. Yeah. No disrespect.
Have you guys seen the new Borat movie?
I've seen it.
Yeah. So my partner Lewis, he's living in he went to Bulgaria to shoot Rambo, and he met a girl and he fell in love and he stayed. So he's living in Sofia, Bulgaria with this little Bulgarian girl, Chrissy, and she gets on the phone. I talk to him every morning, and she gets on the phone, and the daughter from Borat is Bulgarian. So it sounds exactly like her. Every morning we get on the phone, and I feel like I'm talking to Borat's daughter.
Nice. That's a quote from the movie. Okay. Okay. Well, I mentioned that whatever comment I said briefly because people are having internet issues. So this is a factor in the equation in terms of we're in for about an hour now. I'd like to open up to Q&A, but we've only got one gentleman.
Maybe he's got questions.
You better ask him.
We have more speakers than
I mean, but we can still. I just wanted to put a footnote out there real quick. So if there was more content or more information you want to put out there, again, this topic can be a whole weekend seminar or a 2-week discussion, obviously. So still keeping under the head of distribution, is there, because I don't want to thin it out unless there's actual relevant information. Again, I want to kiss your backsides a little bit because what you guys are spewing out here is exactly what was my ideal vision to inform and educate everybody who's watching. Again, from the veteran who just needs a review and or finger on the pulse of what's going on right now with everything going on, to the neophyte who has no clue about distribution. And right now you're like the adults in a Charlie Brown cartoon where it's like, what is VOD, a deal, Berlin? Why are they talking about Berlin? I have an American movie, because I'm trying to put myself back again, a decade or more back, where there's just lack of a better term, mindset of being naive. Because again, you got this great film, your vision came to light, all this hard work, and now I have this thing in the can, and now it's just so awesome to go sell it. But it's an entire. I want to really push that it's an entire universe outside of C-stands and whatever line item in your budget. Understanding
digital, I think, changed things in the sense that when digital was still in its infancy, we used to do a lot more what they call all rights deals, where you would license a movie to a distributor in Japan or wherever, and you'd give them all rights, meaning they would take, you know, theatrical rights, TV rights, digital rights, DVD rights. They would own the exclusive right to distribute that movie in Japan. Now, because of digital, you're doing a lot more smaller deals where just TV rights or just rights.
Or they just
Right.
want
Like
internet. That's all. Just internet. Oh, okay, just internet.
I have one film
It's like,
that
what else
sold.
is
I did
there?
3 different deals in the Middle East. I sold one to one buyer for TV, one for theatrical, and one for digital. Collectively, that was less than 10 grand. And I had to do 3 separate deals on this film. But a lot of places, yeah, it's just digital, just internet rights, or just TV rights. So it's a lot more legwork now. Like back, you know, when I first started doing this like 10 years ago, you'd sell a territory and it was like, all right, it's done. And you get a premium for that. So there's a lot less of that now.
I highly recommend, if you haven't seen it, Erik, Phill, and Marc, did you see the Canon documentary, Electric Boogaloo?
Yeah.
About films? Oh, it's brilliant. And it's like, yeah, those days of the AFM and Can where, you know, again, you can make a movie 3 million and you'd sell 10 million at Can, are obviously long gone, but it was fun to look back at that. And at the same time, I go, an idiot could have made money in this business, you know, because you have to be so smart now and so specific. And it's like these guys, I mean, I don't have respect for that. I mean, Canon's different because they were definitely trendsetters.
Well, it flip-flopped if you think about it. Because like before, it flip-flopped because before it was tough to make the movie and eat. And now it's the other way around.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great point, actually. I never thought of that. That's true. It's
Now,
so
anyone with a camera and an idea thinks they're Spielberg, you know?
Okay, well, for those few that are like that, but they actually do have talent and they produce a good film, what should their mindset be in terms of, again, the back half, distribution? What should they keep in mind from day one? You know, as far as anything from, we need to shoot like key art on the first day. We don't want to just get screen grabs and that's going to be our, you know, our one sheet poster. What are things to keep in mind in terms of distribution on day one, whether it's writing the screenplay or, you know, the first day of shooting, so that it's as easy as possible to get into your world and be as attractive as they can be for you, for your buyers, to get it out there?
A good script would be a good start. I mean, if you shoot your movie, regardless of what it is, and you know, you can only do so much with whatever resources you have, and finishing a movie is an accomplishment no matter what it is, and then you're going to get it out, and what are they going to see? They're going to see, before they see the movie, they're going to see the poster and the trailer. So yeah, it's tough to have when you have no budget, or, you know, such a limited budget, have a still photographer on set getting the stills. And even if you do, you know, some of the frame grabs, you know, may be better than the stills anyway. But anyway, you get your poster, as, you know, you don't just like, I'm the director and I know how to open up Photoshop, so I'm going to create a poster. Get somebody to create a poster and get a good trailer so that they can actually want to see the movie, actually request to see the movie.
I found something that.
Idea.
Go ahead, Erik. No, please go ahead.
I have an idea when you talk about stills and frame grabs and so on. Every movie, and they're mostly only behind the scenes type of stills. So a good pro tip, if you're going to shoot a movie and you're getting a still photographer, have them shoot some stills, right? If you're doing the first take or a rehearsal on camera, shoot stills of what the action is on the set, right? Don't do a bunch of behind the scenes stuff that's going to go for the director.
Yep. That's
like the movie. So
yeah, exact point I was going to make. I swear to God, Erik, I was going to say the same thing, is that stills are something that they always forget. And if they do, it's like behind the scenes stills that it doesn't, we're never going to use that shit. You know, your actress is putting her makeup on. Like, that's nothing. And so then it's screen grabs, which do not work out as well many times. But anyway, you know, going to the Fernando, the ultimate question, it's like, stick to those genres, try to get cast, cast is attainable. We were saying it yesterday. Mark and I were harping on that, Eric. I mean, it's like cast is obtainable nowadays. You know, if you go, well, I'm only making my movie for 75 grand. I made two. Or maybe one was a little bit more, but one at 75 grand, we still had cast, sellable cast in that movie. You can still do it. So don't think, you know, you can't. So sellable cast, stick to the right genres, and try to get a sales agent relationship early on.
And also, adding to that point about stills, not just stills within the action, I make my photographer take the actors because, you know, they're sitting around between setups in costume, in makeup, with props, on payroll, doing nothing. I actually make my photographer take my principal cast, put them up against a white wall or whatever, and pop off like 100 different shots in different poses and different sizes. Editable. It's a hard word to say. Editable, high-res stills of all your principal cast. That's what's going to create your key art, and that's the stuff distributors want. The other thing is paper. Everything we were talking about yesterday when you're talking about finance. You got to treat it like a business. Same thing for distribution. You got to have paperwork on everyone and everything that touches your movie. I get producers all the time who are like, I want you to take my film to Lionsgate or somewhere. I'm like, you can't deliver to Lionsgate. You don't have what they're going to need legally, even if they like your movie. So treating it like a business, having the stills, having paperwork. I mean, really just getting your production buttoned up from a business perspective. That's going to make or break distribution.
Oh, quickly, what legally, what paperwork do they need, just so they have some idea?
So like I know, like Grindstone is one of the places that I've sold a handful of movies. That's non-theatrical division of Lionsgate, but you're dealing with Lionsgate's legal department, so they want to see paperwork on every principal, on everybody who appeared on camera. They want to see paperwork on and deal memos on all the principal crew, union paperwork, chain of title. There's all sorts of other assignment, right of assignment paperwork. I mean, I'm happy to share that deliverable list. If you've never delivered a film, it's a very daunting process. If you're delivering to a smaller distributor, it's pretty straightforward. If you're delivering to a bigger one, it'll make your head spin. So those are the types of things that can be exorbitantly expensive if you have to go back and do it, you know.
Get release forms legal. Yeah, because I remember I used to work for Relativity for a while in post-production, and I saw their deliverables. It wasn't a list; it was the phone book.
Yeah. But like I said, I can't tell you how many times, and I vet that with filmmakers first. I'm like, do you have A, B, C, D through Z? Because if you don't, these are things you're going to need.
And I mean, every track is
surprisingly often enough, something pops up and bites you in the butt because you're missing a legal document, and someone comes in and saying you can't release that film because he doesn't own it, I own it, blah blah blah. There's all these disputes you never thought in a million years were going to come up, but they do come.
And
up.
it's never a clean, graceful process. But I won't even present a movie to a higher end distributor unless I know that I'm going to be able to deliver it, because I'm not going to get egg on my face with that buyer.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what I was trying to hit on. Again, I'm trying to start from the very, from ground zero, filmmakers and producers. When you say paperwork, we just did a release form for the venue. That's, when you start getting into deal memos and labor unions, so on and so forth. That's kind of what I was trying to get at as far as real insider, hardcore, cold industry stuff. It's, write a great script, fantastic, and cast.
Well, and both things, the movie and the script, is like the producer's protection is the Library of Congress.
It's got to be.
Fernando, can I say that I just put 3 videos up? I did a 3-part series for the Filmmaking Stuff YouTube channel on delivery. It's delivery part 1, delivery part 2, delivery part, and it's just goes down the list of the elements and describes what we're talking about. And I just put in the chat window if you want to just save it for
anybody up there, because it's great. Because I know I definitely know that you and Marc put things out there, but again, this is an exotic business, if I can use that adjective. It's not something you go out there and it's hard to find out who you can trust. Who's the snake oil salesman? Marc, you may have encountered one or two, you have to
teach yourself. I was thinking about what you're saying for a new filmmaker that doesn't understand the business end of the distribution and so on. Sure, there's a disconnect, but it's just another area to learn and grow, just like they never held a camera, they never wrote the script.
Awesome.
I mean, they learned that part of the craft over a long period of time. And this is the same with this thing. I mean, you listen to seminars like this, you talk to other people, you read books, you figure it out. You have to think of it, it's a self-taught business, but you have to also allow yourself time to grow into it and understand the business. And if you really, really want to understand it, some people don't want to understand. They just want to do the creative part, give it to someone else and never hear about it again. But, you know, it's a process. You can learn it. I mean, we all did. We all come from a creative background and we decided, hey, we want to learn the business too.
Yeah, that's something I encounter on a regular stream. Again, obviously running film festival, I get a lot of new filmmakers all the time. And it's a constant diatribe at this point. I feel like I'm on a junket where it's always the same comment. The show and show business is the sexy part. It's, you know, that's where the creative and the imagination and the passion comes from. No one wants to know about union paperwork. No one wants to, like, oh, that we'll take care of that later. Well,
it's like flossing, you know, it's no fun, but you got to do it.
I don't know how to floss on a heavy spin. But yeah, that's what I encounter on a regular basis. Even when I taught film for a while, it's like, oh, I've got that poignant moment. I've got this super plot twist that's going to change the social fabric of the universe. That's great, but do you have a release for that song or, you know, or that building? There's a Coca-Cola.
I mean, the business side of it, Fernando, is just tough, man. I mean, you know, being on. I mean, I think you know, Marc touched on it. I've been there. I did it before. It's like you go with your film before you started this sales company, and when you were the producer, and you go and you're trying to get that sales company, and you're trying to figure out who is the snake sales, you know, and like it's a hard, you know, okay, that is he enthusiastic or is he blowing smoke and just trying to get the film or what? It's you gotta.
And I'll say this to the filmmakers, Fernando,
call.
And I'll agree with all of them because it's the truth. There are some snake oil salesmen out there. Sales agents, distributors put a lot of expenses, whatever they're going to do, unscrupulous. I do say, though, however, it is very rare that they're sitting on some pot of gold that your movie made, because that's something that the filmmakers, oh yeah, they're keeping all this money. I have rarely encountered that situation. Usually your film is not performing, and maybe the distributors or sales agent is not doing enough to push it out there, but rarely is there some $250,000 pot of gold waiting that they're, even the unscrupulous ones. I haven't seen it. That's what
I mean, the best resource for the filmmakers, and this sounds a little cliche, but it's true, is talking to each other. Like, we as sales agents will sometimes reach out to each other and be like, hey, have you done business with this buyer? Did they pay? What was, you know, like, we do due diligence and talk to each other about distributors. Filmmakers should be talking to each other. And, you know, if they're seeking out a sales agent, you can reach out to other filmmakers who have worked with those sales agents and say, what was your experience like? You know, use each other to figure out who's good and who's not.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, I just read a great thing that this is funny in a general note, is that when you ask somebody, he's totally right, you got to reach out to the filmmakers, but when you ask somebody for references, that's just a dumb practice in general, because anybody's going to give you good references. Right. If you ask, you know what I mean? Like, so in general, and it's been used in business for years, it's the dumbest practice. But what Marc is saying, talk to other filmmakers. I say to, you know, because somebody, like, say we're pitching a film, they'll say, do you have references? I'll tell them that story saying, don't ask me for references because I'm only going to give you people. I go to IMDb, look at some of my films and reach out to those producers. You pick. Yeah. So that I would do to any filmmaker. Pick, if you're going to go with a sales agent, Wonder Phill, any Leo, Marc. I forget the name of your company, Marc. I know you, but your company. Yes, all got right. It. So you go to IMDb, find their films, reach out to some of the filmmakers and email them. You know what I mean? And trust me, producers will be happy to talk to you if they're positive or negative. And it's like, so that's.
You're totally taking me back, Tom, because way back when, I actually didn't do this with you, Erik, way back when, but the next layer beyond that is I definitely what you said. You, as a filmmaker, a business person, do your due diligence. Not only look back, look up the former clients and whomever the agent is handling. Go back to the client that's about 5 to 7 years old. Also, not like the one who just brokered the deal, but someone who's benefited or been burned by that agency. So yeah,
I just recently had a producer who I'm talking to about their film ask me for references, and I gave him like 10. You know, I literally gave him like 10. I was like, you choose who you want. But half those, and she emailed everyone, but half those producers emailed me and said, what do you want me to say? And I said, tell them the truth. Like, tell them, answer the questions.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably shouldn't admit this to a recording that's going to be seen for till the end of time, but because I've received a few recommendation requests for whether they want to get into graduate school or whatever. And I totally stole this from somebody else where I asked for one way back when as well, where I just basically say, because we're all busy people and I don't necessarily know what to say, what are the keynotes, because I don't know specifically what the end users going to want to see to make this most beneficial for you. I just say, write it for me, then send it to me, and I'll just maybe add a couple nuances to make it my voice. But I'm here to support you and help you. The fact that you're asking me, that's wonderful. But you write it for me. So yeah, to your preference, Tom. Don't ask the origin to fulfill that request. So I mean, these are all great notes. Again, we're the spectrum of savvy producers to not the most Einstein-y of the world will be able to benefit from this, because they could be very clever and very smart, but it's a unique and, again, exotic enough a business where, like, what I've found from the very beginning is that it's not a rocket surgery business, but the quantity of things that you should know to make the best decisions is that there's definitely a surplus. There's just a lot going on. And I think, Marc, one of you mentioned yesterday, it's a moving target. You put your finger in the wind as far as, again, there are fundamentals, but then there's what's hot, what's not. And then you add COVID to the mix, and that puts a totally different spin over everything. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, but are you correct?
I'd say you're wrong, Fernando. No, I'd say it is rocket science. It is like, wow. I mean, how many degrees, how many hats can you wear? What how many things are you gonna, as a producer, like, you need a PhD just to figure out the film festival circuit. So, how are you, as a producer, I get the self-distribution thing and doing all that, but you better be ready to, that's kind of what I thought I was going to be doing when I started this in 2005. My AFM was the first market in 2005. And I was like, okay, I'm going to hit the markets and I'm going to make my films. And it's like, I'm going to keep making films. I'm going to represent film. I'm like, okay, I didn't make another film. I didn't help produce a film for over 5 years. I was just slammed with this sales company. So just, there's only so many hats you can wear, and you do need a PhD with every hat.
It does change. And that was my first AFM too, by the way, Phill. I swear to God, this is supposed to be my 15th this year. So that the heads up. Cool. But we remember Can going back like 5-6 years, Amazon was the big thing, because that's when they were paying a lot more than they are now. Everybody's talking about Amazon. Then like Can 2-3 years ago, everybody's talking, we had like 4 blockchain meetings. I don't know if y'all remember the blockchain meetings, and they were all like, and I'm like, all right, we're not taking any more blockchain meetings. You know what I mean? And that just went away. And now nobody's talking about that. So it's like, yes, there's all these trends. Some come and go, some stay, but you have to really be flexible.
Yeah, there were a couple of years where everybody wanted 3D movies. That's gone now.
Yeah. Well, that was a little longer ago, but yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, I still hear stories of back in the 90s, like the Robert Rodriguez and Kevin Smith debuts, where they were bringing suitcases of $500,000 to Santa Monica at the market.
I would kill to be a sales agent in the 90s.
That's why you got to watch that documentary. Yeah. It was like, it brought that feeling. Yeah.
You know what else? What's that documentary with that disgraced director who got all those Me Too claims? But he went to Cannes with Alec Baldwin, and he was trying to sell a film, and he sat down and this is before Baldwin had his resurgence, and they're sitting down with all these distributors trying to get this movie funded, and everybody's like, no, he's just a TV actor. We don't want to do that. Like, he's this A-list director, A-list actor, and they're at Cannes taking meetings. I got to figure out the name of this documentary.
I saw that one. Yeah,
and it was like it was amazing to watch two people at that level be told no, and they were only going to put together like a $5-6 million movie. Like in their world, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting.
Things have changed. Yep.
Okay. Real quick, because I can feel a lull coming on. We only have one guy out who's made it through the technology bubble here. Erik, if you have any questions, go ahead and post them now. Erik Zoa. Is there anything you guys from what we've talked about now that maybe I've missed or should be pertinent to the discussion again in 2020? Days before Thanksgiving. Is there something trending or of note that has popped up recently, maybe within the last 3 months or season that people should be aware of within your world or in general? Or did we discuss it all already? It's done.
I think we did every aspect of film. We covered.
I'm going to monetize this then.
You know what?
By the way, the Alec Baldwin, James Toback documentary, it's called Seduced and Abandoned.
Oh, good. Oh, I got it.
Yeah, it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. Seduced and Abandoned.
You know, I'll throw out an opinion, Fernando,
Please.
to filmmakers. There's a trend. I think Marc even referenced it the other day, getting these submitted. There's a trend that everybody's making movies with like masks on, like pandemic movies, and I get it, okay? But 5 years from now, are we going to give a shit about a movie with a guy with a mask on as the lead role? Like, probably not. Hopefully, when the vaccine kind of clears it out and like the future is bright. All I'm saying is like, it might be nice for somebody to just make a normal movie, if they can pull it off and not have everybody in freaking masks in the movie and theme the pandemic. You know what I mean? That's my opinion. I'll just say that. Yeah,
That's why I made a romantic comedy
about
the pandemic.
Or they're just making a rom-com, but they're
like, let's
putting
do a
everybody
romantic
in
comedy.
masks. And I'm like, 5 years from now, are people going to get shit? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, and maybe work around, with all the SAG policies.
Right.
Like, yeah, well, everybody's wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And we had it on.
No, my buddies did a horror movie with everybody had masks on through the entire movie.
Oh,
So,
what was that? You did? What did you say?
no, a friend of mine. It wasn't my movie.
Friend of mine. Okay.
My movie. Friends of mine did a horror movie, and everybody had a mask on the whole movie. And
How scary.
I guess that's good for looping.
yeah. That's awesome. I never thought of that. That's got to be the greatest thing ever. And dubbing. That's hilarious.
But then again, continuity might be an issue. If it's like shifted, a half inch either way on, from a cut. Wow. Okay. And again, guys, don't want any kind of lulls, and I don't want to spread the butter too thin. If we've kind of ran out of air and covered everything pertinent at the moment. So I'll just open up. Erik, again, just stay, or did you have to? I'm still trying to figure out the technology here. If you said anything,
You did.
But
Would you recommend creating your own production company before making a film?
so Erik put up a question. Would you recommend creating your own production company before making a film? How would you guys address that?
Well, you have to have a legal entity for the purpose of, again, when you produce a film, you're starting a business. So
Correct.
you definitely have to have a legal entity set up, if not for anything, just to keep it all clean and separate. But that's when we were talking about delivery. That's one of the things, especially bigger distributors will want to see, is they'll want to see what the legal entity is that produced, and not just produce the film, but owns and controls the rights to the film.
Should the film be its own LLC?
What's that?
Should the film be its own LLC?
Ideally, yes. I know, depending on where in the country you are, that can be a somewhat of a significant expense. But ideally, yes.
Yeah.
It's a pretty small expense, and you need an LLC to protect yourself.
My own production company, like a Tricano Productions,
Copyright
like it's my production
stuff.
company. And if I'm making a new movie, I can't all put it under that same LLC. Each movie's got to be its own LLC, or else one movie could get sued down the road, and that could affect all the other movies under that LLC. You can't do that.
So you do want to have an entity specific to the movie.
Perfect. I mean, again, these are little tidbits I want to share with the crowd, especially the newbies, because I know I'm guilty of it. I have my one production company, and whatever I produce, I put it I put it under there. Granted, I'm not the productions I'm putting out there aren't for mass distribution or anything like that, but just the little nuanced bits of information where yes, each movie needs to have its own company. Again,
Well, yeah, I mean, like you're always going to have every producer on it is going to put their production company because they're the ones producing it. But there still needs to be, whether it's listed as a presenting company or not, there just needs to be something specific to that movie.
Erik, you're going to say?
I was just going to say that you can still have your production company as just like a studio. I mean, Universal Studios is making movies, but each film they make have its own legal, like you Marc said, entity just for the legality and accounting and so on. But it's still going to be Universal Studios made this movie, right? You can treat it the same way.
Again, like you said earlier, just another box to check off that a new filmmaker may not know. They may know frame rates and they may know, what kind of light and color grading, things like that. But knowing that each movie needs its own LLC, which, by the way, I know in Virginia it's like $100, $110. You have to put your name and address. You've got an LLC essentially.
That's good. In California, it's $800 a year.
As I was just going to say, $800 a year for a California one, but which my production company is. But there's been I'll say this for filmmakers. There's been films that I've worked on where I wasn't part of the LLC. I didn't need to be part of the LLC. Like if they hired gun produced, like I was a hired gun producer, great. I don't have to be, and sometimes I don't want to be a part of it. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to have that legal expense. It's like great, you're going to pay me X, and my name's going to be there, or my production company name. Great, you know what I mean? Like so. You don't always have to be. That's not something I would fight for necessarily if I didn't, if the project wasn't part of me, I don't know. Just let them know.
Yeah, I mean, prices are important. Again, because I mentioned it's been a little while, but I think an LC is actually no, I did it a couple years ago. It's like $100, $115 to register. Then it's $50 a year in here. So maybe they want to, come to Virginia and register their company post. You're looking at a sponsor. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. We have about an extra half hour here. Again, I don't want to spread it too thin. I want to make sure we put as much information out there that is relevant and gold for everybody. So, Erik, unless you've got something else, I think I'm going to wrap it up. And again, I don't want to close it too early at the same time. So if there's a topic you don't think we've covered, again, under the distribution, what's relevant and trending right now, please bring it up now or forever until the end of the day, hold your peace. But please.
I thought of something, distribution, because we were talking about marketing and social media marketing and so on. And this is something it just came to me because we go through with every filmmaker, every film we release, and we try to do social media marketing, etc. They all set up accounts for that specific film, and they try to build an audience for each film. And I keep telling them, look, if you want to build a name for yourself as a producer, or director, or a production company, set up your social media under one name, either yourself as a creative person or your production company, and you just keep adding films because you build the audience and it's going to keep growing. Otherwise, you have to start from scratch. Every time you make a new film, you set up a new Twitter handle, a new Facebook page, and so on, and you're starting with 0 followers. So it's easier to build an audience if you
so to be clear, you create a page. It's not your personal page because your personal page is on Facebook top out at 5,000. Where it's unlimited.
No. You create a fan page of some kind, right? Either under yourself as a creative person or your company name or whatever you want us.
Okay, great advice. Is that everybody agrees with that or has done that?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I had to choke for a second. Yeah. Well, fantastic. Again, if there's anything else, thank you all.
Somebody go produce 4 badass cast-driven action movies so we can all have one.
Yeah, it's a way to do it, man. Yeah.
Actually, I just thought of a different way to spin it, and I kind of try to avoid it so it doesn't give. It's not such it's a negative connotation, but real quick, because it's some homework I'm going to be giving out to all of you guys shortly. Well, I was going to do a top 10, but I'll just do a top 1 or 2 with each of you, and I'll give you some time to process it. But what are your number one, maybe top 3, but definitely number 1, top ways to fail at getting your film distributed? And without the obvious, make a horrible film here, but just something that you may or may not think off the top of your head that in your unique positions, what, like, you, again, it could be something we covered, but if you want to emphasize the point, like, get your paperwork in order, or have this in mind as you approach XYZ. How are you guaranteed to fail if you do this?
Well, for me, the most obvious one that we come across all the time, they overspend not knowing if it's going to work or not. If it's that kind of just a shot in the dark, let's say if it's going to work, then you want to spend as little as possible. If you're going to spend anywhere from 700,000 and up, you're doomed to fail because you didn't do your homework.
Show the film too early is another one. That's I've seen that just show, even if people say it, and God, we've all watched movies, tons, but when somebody says to me, well, it's still rough cut, but you'll be able to see where it's going because you have experience. I'll admit, I still can't get, it's not that I can't visualize it. It's just that it does lack, but I've made that mistake myself. I had a horror movie, that one that I referenced before. We showed it to some huge companies, and I burnt down that list. Maybe I'd say 6 of them. And then we cut 20 minutes out of the movie. And I look at that as like, I effed up, man. You know what I mean? Like, I should have done some test screenings first, then cut the 20 minutes out, then gone to the 6, because they ain't watching it again. You get one shot with anybody. You know what I mean? Like, so, and with all of us, I can even guarantee if any of these guys, I have an acquisitions guy that watches my movies, but if any of us are watching the movie and then you come back and say, hey, we did changes to it, we're not watching it again. I'm watching your movie one time, and that's it. You know what I mean? And so,
what's too early? The first rough cut is out, but first cut, second cut, and make sure it goes in front of an audience first. What cut makes it to presentation?
Get some feedback on it first.
Okay. Fair.
Get some
Yeah. Final cut gets, you only get one shot. No one's looking at it twice. And what I touched on earlier is no one's looking at it at all. If you spent 2 years making your movie and you spent, 10 minutes making your poster and 2 hours cutting your trailer, it's like, well, it's no one's watching your epic. No one's watching your film that you spent 2 years making because you spent, you didn't spend any time on.
He's exactly right. People send me trailers and I can't get through the trailer. So how am I supposed to wrap my head around getting through the movie if I can't get through the trailer? I watch trailers all the time and I'm like, do you people not go to the movies? You have the whole internet at your disposal. Go on YouTube, watch other trailers, watch trailers for big movies that are somewhat comparable to yours thematically or whatever, and emulate that. But I get these 3.5 minute epic trailers that don't flow. And it's like, you clearly have no self-awareness and how to present it. So what's going to motivate me to want to watch your movie? Now, as far as what is a guaranteed way to fail, some people might disagree with me, but one thing I've never seen work, short of you being Kevin Smith, is self-distributing your movie. I think you need to align yourself with the right professionals to help you, because again, some people will argue with me about this, but every time I've seen an indie filmmaker who thinks they know better than the professionals go out and try to self-distribute their movie, eventually they crawl back and they want help salvaging the effort.
Just happened this morning. That I swear to God, a filmmaker that I said I can help the film just came back this morning and said, hey, listen, if we pull it down from everything, and I swear, but 100% agree on that. They do it. It just they think they're going to get millions of sales and they're going to blow up, and it just doesn't work. But don't do black and white. That's another thing. I've had international buyers to start the trailer. We had one movie that was black and white, and they start the trailer. They go 5 seconds in, they go, wait, is this black and white? And we're like, yeah. They're like, all right. They stop watching the trailer that quick. But, whatever. Just don't do that either.
Perfect.
I have a film from a well-known director and action director. His movies are great and they sell all over the world. And he made this little action noir film, and he did it in color, but he had a color version and a black and white version, and he was insistent that this was his art piece and sell it in black and white. And fortunately, I talked him out of it because I said, look, this buyer wants the movie only in color.
Yeah.
You want to make money or you don't. But you're exactly right.
All right, gentlemen. Perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for. Anything, I just took my quick notes, anything from don't do it in black and white to knowing which cut to show. Erik, I think that's. Okay, yeah,
Give
great.
it to the
Yeah,
festivals in black and
Beautiful.
white. Just
And
don't
from
give it to the
yesterday, the
buyers in
big
black and
one,
white.
again, kind of in your face, obvious, but I'm going to make a note of it when I advertise this thing. Is just the simple thing about the IMDb date. That's not something people are thinking about. That's a purely business tip. You know, again, nothing to do with the storyline or the key art or the casting. So exactly what we're looking for, and I think people are going to benefit from that. So I'm very grateful. Thank you, all of you, for your time. And let me know if there's anything I can do on my end to promote whatever you guys have going on. Because our award ceremony was last night, and yeah, you know, Marc, people are very appreciative and crying and going, "Oh, you're awesome, Fernando." Again, my job and my passion is I'm just a facilitator. I connect A to B, and I get my selfish joy from like seeing creation and things that weren't there before now into existence in a good way. So thank you all for your time and your contribution, and please let me know if there's anything I can do for you all with whatever I do. So again, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy Thanksgiving, and talking to you very soon. Take care.
Good to see
All right,
everybody.
everybody. Take care, guys.
Yep.
Okay, take care.
Bye.